Hi guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Yeti from Earth to Place, and today I'm showing you that we went apple picking, and I will show you a couple of ways of how we are implementing and using this other than just eating it fresh. And we're going to be making some salted caramel sauce. Now ideally I would do this in a light color bottom pan, but I don't have one, so we're going to do this. What you need is a 2-quart pan. We have that. I'm going to add in 1 cup of sugar. Do it slowly so that none of it goes up on the side of the pot. And we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of water very slowly. Again, we don't want anything going on to the sides. And I'm going to turn on the heat to medium low. It actually has low medium, so you want it low. And we're going to mix this together to get all of the sugar wet. Once you combine this, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to whisk it or mix it or do anything to it. We're going to let the sugar do its thing. This is something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. I'm finally going to make it today, and I'm very excited to try it. Okay. Now, we're just going to watch this as it comes up to a boil, and then I'll tell you what to do next. So what I want to do today is we're going to have sliced apples with a caramel, and we're going to have some fun dipping it. But I'm excited to finally make this. Other things that I want to make is I want to make a cinnamon apple babka, and I want to make some applesauce and can that. So I'm reading the recipe now. It says to actually make the heat on medium for while it's cooking. So we're going to higher the heat a little bit, and we'll watch as this happens. Once this reaches the desired color, this comes together very fast. So I'll have to talk to you while reading the instructions and doing what I need to do. But it should come together pretty fast. If you're going to make this recipe or any recipe that you're following, double and triple read the recipe. You'll see soon why I'm saying it. I messed up by not reading it comprehensively. And now the way that you can mix it is by gently swirling it. And I see that there's still some sugar on the bottom. It's not fully dissolved. So we're going to let this continue doing its thing. I know that I said earlier I'll be making applesauce, but the amount that we've eaten fresh, especially now over Rosh Hashanah for the apple and honey, we don't have enough. But I would love to go apple picking again, and maybe I'll make a separate video just of that. Now you can see the sugar is almost completely dissolved. So in this video, I end up only making only this caramel. I've said that I've been wanting to make it for a while. I looked it up. I've been wanting to make it for probably a year and a half. So I finally made that, which was very exciting. And we're making Apple Cinnamon Babka. If you want to make any of these recipes, I'm going to have them linked down below for you, so you can get those recipes and make it as well. Okay, so now you can see the sugar is fully dissolved, and it has just a tiny tinge of color. And now we're just going to wait for it to darken. You never want to mix it or whisk it at this point. Yeah, just to the camera a little bit so you guys can see better. Okay, there's some color developing over there. Now the reason why you want to swirl it is so that you can see the color under all the bubbles. So later on when I'm making this caramel sauce, you'll see that I'm adding a vanilla bean paste instead of just the vanilla extract. Now the reason why I wanted to use that was because it has the vanilla bean specks in it, and I like using it for products, for anything that I'm making that the vanilla will come through. And I love seeing the little specks show up in the caramel sauce. The flavor came across delicious, you'll see soon. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So you can use regular vanilla extract as well. You don't have to use the vanilla bean paste that I used. What is happening here? This is not what should be happening. Let me see. This is not what should have happened. I'm going to turn over the heat. I'm going to add the cream. No, the sugar is just one big clump. And it doesn't have color. Nope. This is not what I wanted. Might have to start over. Why did this happen though? Oh, I was supposed to add the corn syrup. Okay. We're gonna try this again. Gonna start off with a 1 cup of sugar in here. We're gonna add a 1/4 cup of water. And what I forgot earlier, which maybe this is the reason why it didn't work, is 1 tablespoon of corn syrup. Now we can turn this on medium-low. We're going to combine this with a fork. I'm going to try to get some of the sugar dissolved as well while I'm doing this. And I really hope that it was the corn syrup, not adding it, that made the issue. Okay. I think this is good for now. And now again, we're not going to touch it. So guys, should I ruin the end result for you? I will. The caramel worked this time around. The problem was that I didn't add the corn syrup in the beginning. And I'm actually really happy that I pushed through. I did it again. I was very hesitant doing it again. Because I was thinking, it didn't work. But then I'm like, you know what? I only tried once. It's the first time I'm making it. It's a completely new thing that I'm trying. And I just did it low and slow. I took my time. It took me a very long time to make the second batch. Way longer than it should have. But it was worth it. And then next time I'll be able to crank the heat up just a little bit more so it can go a little bit faster. But I'm really happy that I didn't give up and I tried it again. I'm going to use a candy thermometer just so that it can help me do this better. Now we need to reach a temperature between 340 and 345. If you have one of these, you can use it. Don't put it on the bottom of the pan because then you're going to get a false reading. We're at 230 right now, so we still have quite a bit to go. It's my first time using this candy thermometer, so let's see. We'll see if I have better luck using this than just relying on the color. The recipe that I was following here went off just by color. So I watched the video that she has linked on her website and I was trying to follow it. But then I was getting scared that I was starting to doubt myself. I'm like, it's going to happen again. What happened with the first batch? So I did a quick Google search. I found a recipe that had the same ingredients, pretty much the same measurements that I used here. I'm going to try to find it for you so I can link that for you as well if you have a candy thermometer. And that recipe used the candy thermometer and it said what temperatures you want the sugar to reach for it to be a good caramel color and a good caramel flavor. And they said to follow, I think I said 135, 140. What did I say? 140, 145. So when it reached that point is when I'm gonna continue on and finish off this caramel. So I'm happy I was able to find that information online to be able to be more confident with my making of this sauce. Okay, we reached 340. So what we'll do now is we'll pour in 3/4 cup of heavy cream. Gonna turn over the heat and we're gonna mix this together. It will separate, but just keep on mixing. And if you have issues bringing it together, you can turn on the heat again for just a little bit. But keep in mind this will take a few seconds. You want to make sure all of that sugar is combined with the cream. I'm gonna go at the edges. I don't feel like all the sugar is combined yet, so I'll keep on mixing it. I'll turn the heat back on just a little bit. Something to note, I had all the ingredients pre-measured so that I didn't have to walk away and the caramel should harden before I had a chance to incorporate everything into it. Okay, now you can add between 1 and 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I am going to use this vanilla bean paste. We're gonna mix this in until fully incorporated. Now we're gonna add in 3 tablespoons of butter that we have cut into small pieces. And we're gonna let this melt into the caramel. And again, we're gonna keep on mixing until all the butter is melted and incorporated. Okay, and finally we're going to add 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt. The best quality sea salt that you have. And mix that in and mix it until the salt is dissolved. And this is now done. Now before this sets, you want to transfer it to a glass jar. So I have here just a mason jar. I'm going to pour this into it. Okay, I have the jar now on my counter. We're going to get the pot and we're just going to very slowly pour it in, and we're going to let it cool in the jar. And don't try to taste it yet because this is boiling hot sugar and you can burn your mouth with it. Okay, here I have one of the apples that we had picked the other day, and I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm going to then cut it into wedges and remove the core. Now we've already enjoyed some of this caramel, as you can see. And this has set up nicely in the fridge. And what I'm going to do is I have a spoon here. And I'm going to drizzle. It's not really drizzling. Let's try this again. It's quite thick. Ideally, I would have taken this out of the fridge earlier. You know what? We're not going to drizzle. We're just going to go like that. Look at that. This is delicious. One of the best caramels I've ever had. And you're not going to get an authentic reaction because, like I said, we've already enjoyed this. This is delicious. I had some people over last night for dinner when we had this for dessert. And no matter if they like caramel or not, they could not get enough of this. The interesting thing to note is that the vanilla taste comes out a lot when you eat it with apple. When you eat it just plain, you don't taste the vanilla as much, but when you eat it with apple, the apple flavor somehow brings out the vanilla that we have added in here, and it is so good. Let me get some more caramel so that we can finish up these apples. And I'll see you guys next time I make something with the apples that we picked. The next thing we will be making is Apple Cinnamon Babka. Now I'm going to start in this bowl. I'm going to add 1 cup of warm water with 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1 envelope of active dry yeast. I don't have that, but an envelope is equivalent to 1/4 ounce, which is 0.25. So I measured that out, and I'm going to mix it all together in here. And we'll let this sit for 5 minutes so the yeast can bubble up. I don't know if you noticed, but I used piping hot water and the yeast didn't end up proofing, so I had to redo it. Hot water, I let it cool down, I redid it again, and that's what I used. And while this is going, I am gonna melt some butter. Let's see how much. 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Okay, it's been 5 minutes now. Our yeast has proofed. In here, we're going to put our salt and 3 cups of flour. We're going to start with 3 cups, and if we need, we'll slowly add up to 1/2 cup of flour. So let me measure out the flour first, and then I'll put in the salt. Now I'm going to do 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt. I'm going to turn this on low, and while it's mixing, I'm going to pour in the yeast mixture and the melted butter. I don't want the flour flying up and creating a dust cloud. Okay, let's go. This dough came together super fast, super easily, and it was very easy to work with. And now the butter is going in. And now I have the idea of maybe using this dough and putting in different fillings and becoming creative with this. Okay, now that this is starting to come together, we're going to let this mix for 7 to 12 minutes on medium-low speed until it's smooth and elastic. If necessary, you can add up to 1/2 cup of flour, but do it 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon at a time because you don't want to overdo the flour too much. So we want this dough to be smooth and elastic. Sorry about that. So let's check this. Oh yes, this feels good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the beater. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch the dough out and place it around so that it can rise more evenly. And now we're going to let this rest on the counter. I'm going to cover it with maybe a plastic wrap and a towel. I'm going to let it rest for about 1.5 hours until it's doubled in size. It might be a little bit faster because my kitchen is kind of warm. So I'll start checking it after 1 hour. Let me go ahead and cover this with a plastic. And then with a towel, I'm going to let it rest. Now that it has been 1 hour, my dough is almost ready to be shaped. So I'm going to start preparing the filling. Now what I'm doing here is I took, the recipe calls for 1 Honeycrisp apple, which is about 8 ounces. So because I picked these myself, these apples are a little bit to the smaller side. So I pulled out my scale and I measured it out. And the 1 apple was just under 8 ounces. So I figured I'm going to use 2 instead. So I had gone ahead and washed and dried it because we're not peeling it. I am now cutting them into thin slices. You don't want them too thin. The recipe says about 1 1/16 inch thick. And the apples should come out to about 1 3/4 cups. So the one apple came out to about 1 cup. So I'm going to use the full 2 apples because the second one was even smaller than the first one. And now to this bowl, we're going to add the rest of the filling ingredients, which I forgot to melt some butter. So let me go ahead and do that right now before I continue with anything else. So total between the dough and the filling, you need 1 stick of butter. I am using a plant-based butter because I am making this in my cast iron skillet, which I use for meat. So I can't put any dairy butter in there. While we're waiting for that to melt, I'm going to start adding the rest of the ingredients in here. So in here, we're going to put 1 1/2 cups of dark brown sugar. Next, we'll add a tablespoon of cornstarch. I'm using a 1/2 tablespoon. A tablespoon of cinnamon. 1 teaspoon of ginger. It says ground ginger. I don't know if that's fresh or powdered, but I only have the powdered. So that's what I'm going to use. And then we're going to add the butter, which has melted at this point. And we're going to mix this together. Oh, the smell. Delicious. I think we're going to let this sit. And then right before I add this as a filling, I'm going to give it a mix again to make sure, because as you can see, the sugar is getting hydrated by the butter and it's becoming wet, so it's melting a little bit. So I think we're going to let that sit and give it a final mix again later. Okay. The next step is to grease whatever we're going to use to bake it in. Now you can do it in any 10-inch pan. The recipe calls for a cast iron skillet, but you don't have to use this. And it says to spray it, so I have my avocado spray and I'm gonna grease this. Cooking spray, yeah. I want to ensure it's not gonna stick. We're gonna set this aside now and we're gonna start rolling out our dough. Okay, our dough needs to be rolled out to 22 by 14 inches. So moving away the tomatoes, so we have space to do that. Gonna get the dough out of the mixing bowl. But before we do that, I'm gonna lightly flour the counter over here. Oh, this dough feels so good. Wow. Should have greased this also before I let it rise. Wow, that feels amazing. Okay, so I'm going to form it into a rough rectangle so that it is easier to roll into the shape that we need. And we're just going to start rolling until it becomes 22 by 14. Now this rolling pin has some measurements on here. I don't know if the camera can pick it up over here. So this will help me know when I reach the right measurement. So I managed to get the dough slightly smaller than the 22 by 14 that the recipe called for, but I felt like the dough was getting too thin and I didn't want to risk getting tears in them. So I decided to just stop rolling it out, even though it was smaller, and I used it that way. I believe this is the nicest rectangle I've ever rolled out. I saw the trick recently of first shaping it by hand into the shape that you need. And that was really helpful. I feel like it really made a difference. Okay. Okay, like I said, I'm mixing this one more time. Okay. So we're going to pour this onto this dough. And we're going to evenly spread out this filling over the dough. You want to leave an inch at the edges. Something that I'll note for next time is that I'm going to try to get all the apples in the same direction, going in the long way should be the same as the dough. And you'll see why I'm saying this later on. Okay, I think I'll consider this good. And we're going to start rolling. We're going to roll it jelly roll style, and I like to usually fold over the first little piece, and then start rolling it. Okay, so I see the apples that are going this way. It's easy to turn on. To roll the dough over, but the ones that are going in this direction are kind of stretching the dough, like you can see over here and over here now. Something to note for yourself and for me for the next time that I'm making this. And now that we're coming to the end, I'm going to bring it up and pinch the dough to seal it. I'm also going to pinch the ends that juices shouldn't come oozing out. Now, I'm going to flip this over so that the seal is on the bottom. Ooh, leakage. Okay, that's okay because look what we're doing. But we're not going to cut it till all the way at the end over here. Oh yeah, we're going to cut it all the way through actually. And we're going to turn it that the cut side is facing up. It's falling out. So now we're going to twist this with the cut side staying up. Wow, these are going to be hard to do. Let's see. They're so long. Whee! Okay. So we twisted this, and now we're going to twist this into a ring. So I think I'll do like this. Twist it around each other. Twist it around itself. And now we're going to put that into the prepared skillet. Second. I don't want to put that on the dirty counter. So I have here my skillet that we greased earlier. And now, whoa, how are we gonna do this? Oh my God, okay. Like that, we're gonna tuck any apples back inside, the most that we can. And the recipe does say that it makes a mess on the work surface, which I think this is not too bad. If you guys have seen how I made my strawberry shortcake cinnamon buns, that made a bigger mess than this. Now we're going to cover this with a plastic wrap, and I believe we have to let it rise for an additional 45 minutes. Let me wash my hands so I can open up my phone again and check. Okay, so like I said, this is now covered with saran wrap, and I double checked and it has to rise for 45 minutes. So we're going to set this aside, and in about 15 to 20 minutes I'll preheat my oven to 350 so we can get this baked right away. It's been 45 minutes. My oven is preheated. We're going to take off this saran wrap and we're going to bake this for 30 to 35 minutes. But for the last 10 minutes, we're going to cover it with a foil so that the top doesn't brown. So I'm going to make a timer for 20 minutes and we'll check it to see if it's almost done. Because if it needs the 35 minutes, then I only want to cover it for the last 10. So I'll show you what this looks like when it comes out of the oven. Okay, this has just come out of the oven. We're going to let this cool a little bit, but look at all that sizzling, the cinnamon, brown sugar. And it is looking so good. The smell here is heavenly. This is still going to get a drizzle on the top. So I'll show you when I do that. This here has been cooling for about 50 minutes now. So I'm going to make the icing. I have here 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of milk. I'm going to start with about half. And I like to do this with a fork to break up the powdered sugar the most possible. And I see already that I'm going to need the full 2 tablespoons for the icing, so I'm going to add that in. And just like the butter, I'm not using dairy product. I'm using soy milk instead of regular milk, and the glaze still comes out delicious. I think you can use a little bit more liquid. So I'm going to pour it into the cup so that I don't do too much at a time. Until it becomes like a drizzle consistency, because I want to drizzle this over the top. Just a tiny bit more, not too much, and that'll be good. I would say I probably use 2.5 tablespoons. Yeah, that I like. I am so excited for this. Oh my god. Oh man. This looks so good and it smells so good. Yeah. And this is it. Yum. I prepared myself a slice of this Apple Cinnamon Babka that I want to taste. I will be serving this later today at a meal. I will probably serve it with a scoop of ice cream. And this, they say to cover tightly, and you can store in the fridge for, I think they said 3 days. I can check the recipe again, I'll let you know. But let's give this a taste test. The dough is delicious, eerie, not too sweet. A lot of the sugar has actually seeped out into the cast iron skillet. I could have maybe used a slightly bigger one. So it's not too sweet. The filling is not too sweet either. The apple is delicious. Let me take another piece that, like over here where it does have more of the filling. And let's see how this bite will be. Again, not too sweet. But it's perfect to end the meal with. And giving very much full vibes. I'm very excited for this. And I hope all the guests that are coming for this meal will enjoy this as well. And like I said, I will be serving it with a scoop of ice cream. You can serve it with a babka warm or room temperature. This is amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing in the kitchen and we'll be doing out in the garden, then hit the subscribe button. And I will link some more videos up on the screen for you if you want to watch it between now and my next video.